My wife believed her best mate's lie that I'd cheated and ruined everything. But when the truth finally came out, she wasn't ready for what I did next. I'm 35, living in Bristol, and I just finalized my divorce from my wife, Sophie. We'd been together 6 years and married for 2. Looking back now, I can see I should have spotted the disaster coming a mile off. Honestly, the warning signs were there right from the start, but I kept brushing them aside because, well, I thought I loved her. The problem had a name, Lucy. Lucy was Sophie's best friend. Ever met someone and instantly known they were trouble? That was Lucy. Loud, selfish, always needing to be the center of attention. From the very first time I met her, I felt like she was sizing me up, waiting to find something to use against me. But Sophie? She couldn't see it. To her, Lucy was her lifelong mate, the one who'd stuck by her through everything at university and beyond. I thought, fine, I'll put up with her, she's important to Sophie. But Lucy was expert at pushing my buttons. Things started to go downhill when we began planning the wedding. I'd proposed after 3 years of dating. We were living together by then and it just felt right. Sophie was over the moon, and so was I, at first. Then Lucy began meddling. At first, it was small stuff. She hated our color choices, said they were too plain. I ignored it, who cares about the colors? Then she kicked up a fuss about the catering, insisting on vegan options because half the guests would want that. There were maybe 2 vegans in the whole group. But then came the real shocker, Lucy demanded her own walk down the aisle. Yep, she wanted a moment before the bridesmaids, claiming she'd been there for every breakup and tough time in Sophie's life. This day's about celebrating the people who stood by her, not just the marriage, she said. I thought she was joking. Who asks for that? But Sophie just nodded, like she was giving in. I tried to step in. Sophie, this is our wedding, not Lucy's stage. Your sister's already your maid of honor, that's enough. Sophie got defensive. You're making a big deal over nothing. Lucy acted like I'd insulted her personally. Wow, she sneered, didn't know your fiancé was so controlling. That stung. But instead of standing up for me, Sophie gave in. It's just one little thing, she said later. If it makes her happy, what's the harm? So Lucy got her grand entrance. She strutted down the aisle like it was her wedding. I could see my parents shooting me looks from the front row, but I just smiled for the photos, thinking it'd stop once we were married. Big mistake. After the wedding, Lucy didn't disappear as I'd hoped. She became even more involved. Whenever Sophie and I made plans, Lucy's name was always popping up. Oh, I told Lucy she could come, Sophie would say. Or, Lucy thinks we should try this restaurant instead. It felt like we couldn't make a single decision without her approval. I tried to bring it up gently. I love that you have a close friend, I said, but Lucy's a bit too involved. Can we set some boundaries? Sophie got defensive again. She's my best mate. I can't shut her out. You don't understand how much she's done for me. Maybe I didn't understand the years they'd spent together. But what I did know was Lucy didn't respect me or our marriage, and Sophie was too caught up in their friendship to notice. At first, I wanted to believe Lucy wasn't deliberately trying to ruin things. Maybe she just didn't know when to step back. But deep down, I knew better. Lucy didn't like me. Plain and simple. The more she pushed in, the clearer it became. I don't know why I didn't stand up sooner. Maybe I thought it wasn't worth the fight or I didn't want to risk pushing Sophie away. But that was my mistake. By staying quiet, I let Lucy feel entitled to interfere in our marriage. And by the time I realized how far she'd gone, it was too late. About a year in, Sophie and I had settled into a rhythm. Work, date nights, binge-watching TV at weekends. Things weren't perfect, but they were peaceful. Until one Friday night when Lucy showed up at our door, crying like her world had ended. Sophie and I had planned a quiet night making dinner and watching a film. I was chopping onions when the doorbell rang. Sophie went to answer, and seconds later, I heard Lucy sobbing. She clung to Sophie like she'd been shipwrecked, a duffel bag over her shoulder, mascara streaming down her face. "He left me," she wailed. "I can't do this alone." Sophie led her inside and gave me a look that said, "We'll talk later." I stood in the kitchen feeling like I'd walked into a nightmare. Lucy settled onto the sofa, rambling about how her boyfriend of 2 years dumped her out of nowhere. Sophie held her hand and nodded along sympathetically. I tried to focus on the dinner, but I couldn't help overhearing. Apparently, her boyfriend Jake had broken up with her over text because he said they weren't right for each other. Lucy insisted she'd been perfect and Jake was just emotionally cold. "Do you have anywhere to stay tonight?" Sophie asked gently. Lucy's eyes flicked to me before she said, "No. I can't go back to my parents. They'd say, 'I told you so.' All my other mates are busy." I didn't know where else to go. I saw where this was heading and I wasn't happy about it. Sophie turned to me. "Is it all right if Lucy stays here for a few days? Until she gets back on her feet?" What could I say? "No, your best mate can't crash here even though she's a mess?" So I nodded and forced a smile. At first, I tried to be patient. Breakups are rough. The first few days, I kept my distance and let Sophie handle things. But by the end of the week, it was clear this few days was stretching into forever. Lucy wasn't just staying with us, she was taking over. The guest room Sophie and I kept tidy became a tip. Clothes everywhere, on the floor, the bed, draped over chairs. Empty coffee cups and takeaway boxes piled up on the bedside table. It looked like a teenager's room after a messy breakup, except Lucy was 34. She practically lived in the living room, blasting reality shows at full volume and hogging the sofa. Twice I came home from work to find her sprawled out in her pajamas, snacking from a family-size bag of crisps while watching some dating show. She didn't even look up. Just mumbled, "Hey," between mouthfuls. The kitchen wasn't any better. Lucy wasn't much of a cook, but that didn't stop her using our pots and pans like she was starring in her own cooking show. The problem? She never cleaned up. I'd wake up to a sink piled high with dirty dishes and half-eaten meals left out on the counter. One night, I told Sophie gently, "I know Lucy's going through a lot, but she's treating this place like a hotel. It's not fair on us." Sophie looked torn. "I know it's frustrating, but she has nowhere else to go. She just needs a bit more time." I repeated, "A bit more time? It's been 2 weeks. How much longer?" Sophie hesitated. "I'll talk to her." But when she did, it didn't help. Lucy flipped the script and played the victim. "I'm sorry if I'm a burden," she said dramatically, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll leave if that's what you want." Sophie rushed to soothe her. No, it's not like that. We just want to make sure you're all right." It was infuriating. Lucy knew exactly how to twist Sophie around her little finger, and Sophie fell for it every time. The final straw came about a month in. One Saturday morning, I went into the garden to grab some tools for a DIY project I was working on. To my surprise, I found my power drill, saw, and other tools scattered all over the patio. Lucy was sitting on the grass, painting wooden scraps bright neon colors. "What's this?" I asked, gesturing at the mess. "Oh, it's for my therapy," she said, unbothered. "My counselor said I should do something creative to deal with my feelings." I blinked. "You went through my tools without asking." She shrugged. "I didn't think you'd mind." I was done. I went back inside and found Sophie in the kitchen. "She has to go," I said firmly. "I'm not asking anymore." Sophie looked surprised. "What happened?" "She's treating this house like her own playground." "I'm done with it. I've been patient, but this isn't working. She needs to leave." Sophie sighed and rubbed her temples. "Okay, I'll talk to her again." This time, I didn't leave it to Sophie. I sat down with both of them and laid it out. "Lucy, we've done our best to support you, but it's been a month. This isn't working for us. You need to find somewhere else." Lucy didn't take it well. She accused me of being heartless, of not understanding her pain. "You're kicking me out when I'm at my lowest," she said, glaring. "Wow, what a great friend," I replied. I wasn't kicking her out that day, but I made it clear she had to find somewhere else. Sophie looked torn, but for once, she didn't side with Lucy. Within a week, Lucy was gone, leaving in a huff, muttering about how I'd always been controlling and that Sophie deserved better. As she drove away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, our home felt like ours again. But even then, things were far from over. I knew this wasn't the last we'd hear from Lucy. The real trouble started one random Saturday afternoon. Sophie had gone out for her usual brunch with Lucy. I wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but I'd stopped complaining months ago. What was the point? Lucy was going to be part of Sophie's life no matter what I said. So, I stayed home, thinking I'd use the quiet time to catch up on chores, nothing exciting, just some shopping, laundry, and a bit of gardening. When Sophie got back, I was in the kitchen putting away the groceries. I greeted her like normal, but something felt off. She barely said a word, just mumbled hey and headed straight to the bedroom. I stood there for a moment holding a bag of apples, wondering if I'd done something to upset her. Maybe she was just tired. I shrugged and went back to putting things away. For the rest of the day, Sophie was distant, really distant. She avoided looking at me, answered my questions with one-word replies, and spent most of her time glued to her phone. I asked her a couple of times if something was wrong, but she just brushed me off with "I'm fine." Clearly, she wasn't. I figured maybe Lucy had unloaded her usual drama, and Sophie just needed time to process it. That night, though, things got weird. After dinner, Sophie barely touched her food and went to bed early. When I joined her later, she was curled up on the far side of the bed, pretending to be asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what on earth was going on. The next morning, I decided to press her. "Sophie, seriously, what's going on? You've been acting odd since brunch." She hesitated, avoiding my eyes, then said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay," I said, feeling a knot in my stomach. "What is it?" She finally looked at me, her face a mix of hurt and anger. "Were you with someone else yesterday?" I blinked, completely caught off guard. "What? No. What are you talking about?" Her voice got sharper. "Lucy said she saw you in a car with some woman. She said you were kissing her in the parking lot." For a second, I didn't know how to reply. It was so unexpected I nearly laughed. But when I saw how serious Sophie looked, my disbelief turned to frustration. "Sophie, that's ridiculous. I wasn't with anyone. I was out shopping." She crossed her arms. "She said you were wearing your brown jacket. She even named the car park, that little strip mall near the high street." I felt like I was in some bad dream. "Yeah, I was at that strip mall. That's where the shop is. I wasn't kissing anyone, I was buying milk and bread." Sophie glared. "Then why would Lucy say she saw you?" That question pissed me off more than anything. Not, "Are you sure she's mistaken, or could it be a mix-up?" No, just, why would she lie? The idea that Lucy would lie was impossible to Sophie. "I don't know," I said, my voice rising. "Why don't you ask her yourself?" "Because I didn't do anything wrong." But she wasn't listening. "I don't know what to believe," she muttered, shaking her head. "Lucy wouldn't lie about something like this." That hit me like a punch to the chest. After everything we'd been through, Sophie couldn't trust me over Lucy. I stood up and paced the room. "You've known me 6 years. Do you really think I'd cheat on you? And in a car park, of all places? Does that sound like me?" Sophie didn't answer. She just sat, staring at her hands. "I need time to think," she whispered. The next few days were hell. Sophie barely spoke to me. She moved into the spare room, saying she needed space. Every time I tried to talk about it, she shut me down. "I'm not ready," she said. "I need more time." Meanwhile, I was stuck in a fog of anger and disbelief. I couldn't stop thinking about Lucy. This was exactly the kind of chaos she thrived on. But what I couldn't understand was why she'd go so far, why lie about something so serious? Did she really hate me that much? At the same time, I couldn't ignore the bigger problem, Sophie's reaction. The fact that she wouldn't give me the benefit of the doubt said more about our marriage than Lucy's lies ever could. If she trusted Lucy over me, what did that mean for us? A week later, Sophie packed a bag and left. She didn't even say where she was going, just that she needed time to figure things out. I didn't fight her. At that point, I was too worn out. The next morning, I got a text from her. I think it's best if we separate for now. I'll have my solicitor send the papers. That was it. No talk, no chance to work things out, just a text and a lawyer. It felt like our whole marriage had been wiped away by one ridiculous story. I didn't even know how to feel. Part of me wanted to fight to prove I was innocent, to make Sophie see sense. But another part of me was just done. If she was ready to throw everything away so easily, maybe I didn't want to save it either. In the weeks after, things only got worse. Word got around about our split, and Lucy made sure everyone knew her version. Mutual friends started acting weird, avoiding me or dropping hints about me needing to work on myself. Even my own family began asking awkward questions, like, is there any truth to what they're saying? It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. Everywhere I looked, there was another reminder of how fast people can turn on you. And through it all, Sophie stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no attempts to reach out, just complete radio silence. At first, I was furious, angrier than I'd ever been. But as the days turned into weeks, that anger faded. In its place was something colder, harder. If Sophie didn't trust me enough to even talk, then maybe I didn't need her in my life. I wasn't going to beg for someone who didn't believe in me. Let her have her time. Let her stay under Lucy's spell. I was done fighting for a marriage where I was always second to her so-called best mate. If this was how it ended, then so be it. Then, 2 months after Sophie left, one Thursday evening, something unexpected happened. I was just scrolling through my phone, eating dinner, when I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "Hi, this is Marissa. I know Lucy lied about you. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, trying to work out who Marissa was. The name sounded faintly familiar, something about a party Lucy and Sophie dragged me to a couple of years ago. But why now? At first, I thought about ignoring it. But the way she wrote, "I know Lucy lied about you," made me curious. I replied, "What lie?" She answered straight away. "About the cheating. Lucy made it all up. I think you need to see proof." The next day, I met Marissa at a small cafe downtown. She was already there, sitting by the window, fiddling nervously with her phone. I sat down, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. "Thanks for meeting me," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd even want to." "Well, here I am," I said. "So, what's this about Lucy lying?" She pulled out her phone and opened a text conversation. "I've known Lucy a long time, but after this, I can't stay silent. You need to know what really happened." She handed me the phone, and I started reading. The messages between her and Lucy were shocking. Lucy, OMG, Sophie finally left him. She actually believed me, LOL. Marissa, what are you talking about? I told Sophie I saw him kissing some random woman in his car. Lucy, you should have seen her face, priceless. Marissa, wait, are you serious? Why would you do that? Lucy, because he's a controlling jerk, and Sophie's too dumb to see it. I had to help her. I kept reading, my hands shaking with anger. It only got worse. Their marriage wasn't going to last anyway, Lucy had said. Sophie's too gullible, she'd believe anything I told her. Please, Marissa, this is messed up, I said, almost unable to keep reading. Lucy, or whatever her real name was, had gone too far. She's better off without him. And now I don't have to hear about her perfect marriage anymore. Gag. I couldn't read any further. I handed the phone back to Marissa, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Did she really say all that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marissa nodded, looking genuinely upset. Yeah, she bragged about it like it was some sort of prize. At first, I didn't believe it, but when she started mocking Sophie for being naive, I realized how twisted it was. I sat there, trying to take it all in. Lucy hadn't just lied, she'd actively sabotaged my marriage and made fun of Sophie in the process. She'd manipulated her best mate, just because she could. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, finally. Why not sooner? Marissa looked down at her coffee. I guess I was scared. Lucy can be intense. But I couldn't keep quiet any longer. It's not fair to you or to Sophie. I took screenshots of the messages and thanked Marissa for coming forward. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. I wasn't just angry, I was furious. Furious at Lucy for being such a manipulative, entitled mess. Furious at Sophie for falling for it so easily. And furious at myself for letting Lucy get away with it for so long. But most of all, I felt something I hadn't in months: validation. For months, I'd carried this cloud over my head, wondering if I could have done anything differently. Now I had proof none of this was my fault. Lucy had set me up from the start, and Sophie had played right into her hands. By the time I got home, my anger had cooled into something colder, calm and steady. I wasn't going to lash out or shout. No, I'd handle this the right way. First, I forwarded the screenshots to my solicitor with a quick note. This is what really happened. Let me know how we can use this. Then, I stared at my phone, debating whether to text Sophie. Part of me didn't want to. What was the point? She'd already shown me where her loyalties lay. But another part felt like she deserved to know the truth even if it wouldn't change anything. After a few minutes, I typed. We need to talk. It's important. Her reply came faster than I expected. What do you want? I kept it short. I have proof Lucy lied. Can we meet? You need to see this. There was a long pause. Fine. Tomorrow afternoon. Where? I suggested a park near her new flat. She agreed. That was it. I wasn't trying to win her back anymore. I just needed her to know the truth, if only to clear my name. Part of me wanted to shove the screenshots in her face and walk away. But I knew I had to keep calm. The last thing I wanted was for her to think I was being emotional or dramatic. When Sophie arrived, she looked hesitant, almost nervous. She wore her usual hoodie and jeans, but she didn't have the confident air she once carried. She spotted me, gave a small wave, and came over. What's this about? She asked, crossing her arms. I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots Marissa had sent me, and handed it to her. Read this, I said flatly. Sophie looked confused but took the phone and started scrolling. At first, her face was neutral, but as she read, it changed. Her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open, and by the last message, she looked pale. She handed the phone back, her hands shaking. She lied, she whispered, almost to herself. Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She lied about everything. Made up the story about me cheating just to break us up. And she thought it was hilarious. Sophie sat down beside me, staring at the ground. I didn't know, she said softly. I didn't think she'd ever. You didn't think she'd ever lie to you? I interrupted, sharper than I meant. That's the problem, I said. You didn't think. You didn't even stop to question it. You just believed her and threw me under the bus. She flinched at my words but stayed quiet. Do you know how humiliating it's been? I continued. My friends, my family, even workmates started looking at me like I was dirt. All because you couldn't take 2 seconds to ask me what really happened. Tears welled up in her eyes. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said. Lucy's been my best friend for years. I trusted her. Well, I said bluntly, that trust just cost you your marriage. Sophie looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she said, voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. That's the problem, I said, my tone softer but firm. You didn't know because you never gave me a chance. You trusted her more than you trusted me. And that says a lot about how you saw this relationship. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of everything hanging heavy between us. Finally, Sophie spoke again. I'll cut her off, she said quietly. I'll never speak to her again. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Part of me wanted to believe her. But the truth was, the damage was done. She'd chosen Lucy over me without a second thought. I don't think we can fix this, I said finally. It's not just what Lucy did. It's how easily you believed her, how little trust you had in me. That's not something we can just work through. Sophie started crying harder. I was stupid, she said between sobs. I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you. Please, give me one more chance. I shook my head. I'm sorry, Sophie. I can't. This isn't just about forgiveness. It's about trust. And once that's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. She kept crying. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I spent alone, wondering what I could have done differently. All the friends who ghosted me because they believed Lucy's lies. All the times I doubted myself because Sophie discarded me so easily. And just like that, my sympathy vanished. I think it's best if we both move on, I said, standing up. I wish things could have been different, but this is where we are. Sophie didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, crying into her hands as I walked away. I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I felt in control of my life again. Later that night, Sophie sent me a long text, apologizing again and begging me to reconsider. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Lucy's lie might have started it all, but Sophie's lack of trust was the real reason our marriage fell apart. By then, I wasn't interested in fixing something that was broken beyond repair. Instead, I sent the screenshots to a few mutual friends who'd cut me off. I didn't add a word. I just let the messages speak for themselves. Within hours, my phone blew up with apologies and support. Wow, I can't believe Lucy did that, one friend said. I'm so sorry I doubted you. You didn't deserve this, said another. Let me know if you need anything, offered a third. It was nice to feel validated, but I wasn't interested in getting those friendships back. If they'd been so quick to believe the worst of me, they weren't people I wanted around. As for Lucy, I didn't bother confronting her. What was the point? She'd already shown who she was, and I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much damage she'd caused. A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that Lucy had been blacklisted from our group. A friend called me and said, "You won't believe it, Lucy's been kicked out of the group." Apparently, once people learned the truth, they all started keeping their distance. Marissa had shared the screenshots with a few others, and the story spread like wildfire. Lucy tried to defend herself, saying she was just looking out for Sophie and that I was controlling and toxic. But no one was buying it anymore. She's completely lost it, my friend laughed. She's been posting long rants on social media about how everyone's turned against her and she's the real victim. Curious, I checked Lucy's profiles on an incognito account. Sure enough, there were posts complaining about fake friends abandoning her and how she was only trying to help. One post said, "I stood up for Sophie when no one else would, and now I'm the bad guy." Pathetic. The comments weren't kind. Most people called her out, "You didn't help anyone. You ruined a marriage." And some wrote things like, "Maybe take a hard look at yourself before blaming everyone else." It was satisfying to see her finally face the consequences. Meanwhile, Sophie's life wasn't much better. She'd moved back in with her parents after everything. From what I heard, things were tense. Her mom, who'd always been skeptical of Lucy, was furious when she found out the truth. A mutual friend told me about a heated argument they had. Her mom said, "You threw away a good man for a liar? How could you be so stupid?" Harsh, but not wrong. Sophie was struggling to pick up the pieces. Her attempts to reconnect with old friends had mixed results. Some were willing to forgive her, but most weren't, my friend said. They'd seen how easily she turned on me and didn't want to risk the same. She looks miserable, my friend told me. Like she's trying to be brave, but you can tell she regrets everything. A few weeks later, Lucy lost her job. Marissa, who still worked with her, sent me a message. "Just thought you'd want to know Lucy got fired today." Turns out, her reputation caught up with her at work. People started avoiding her, and her boss eventually let her go, citing interpersonal issues. I'd like to say I felt sorry, but I didn't. She'd spent years stirring up drama and causing chaos, now she was finally paying the price. As for me, life kept getting better. One day, months later, I ran into Marissa at a cafe. We chatted for a bit, and she told me the latest. "Sophie reached out to Lucy a few weeks ago," she said, rolling her eyes. "Can you believe that?" "What happened?" I asked, curious. "Well, Sophie tried to apologize and said she wanted to move on," Marissa explained. But Lucy just laughed in her face. She told Sophie she was pathetic for even trying and that she was better off without her. I shook my head, half amused, half shocked. Typical Lucy. Never takes responsibility for anything. Marissa smirked. "Yeah, well, they're both getting what they deserve." Looking back, I can't say I'm glad it happened. But I'm grateful for where I am now. Lucy and Sophie's toxic friendship was a ticking time bomb, and I was just caught in the middle. In the end, they destroyed each other and I got to walk away with a clean slate. It's funny how life works. Karma doesn't always hit straight away, but when it does, it hits hard. Sophie and Lucy learned that the hard way. And honestly, I'm okay with that. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. As for me, I'm moving forward. I built a life that makes me happy, surrounded by people who really care. And that's the best revenge I could have asked for.